When Clara received the diagnosis of terminal cancer, the first thought that crossed her mind was, "What do you mean?" The world around her seemed to freeze for a second, and she felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. There was no time for tears. Instead, a chill ran down her spine, making her heart beat faster than ever. Daniel, her husband, gripped her hand tightly, his determined look offering no words that could truly console her. Clara recalled her mother's early death and knew in that instant that the fear she felt was not hers alone, but part of a history repeating itself. Faces hovered around her with condolences and embraces, but nothing sounded real enough to fill the silence growing inside her. That night, Clara lay staring at the ceiling, her pulse throbbing as an insistent question surfaced. Am I ready for whatever comes next? Amid the whirlwind of uncertainties, something inexplicable seemed about to happen, something that would change the course of her life forever, without warning. Clara felt her world collapse when the oncologist uttered terminal cancer. The shock froze her entire body, and a knot seized her throat. She remained silent, absorbing the weight of that verdict, while tears threatening to fall remained trapped. Each breath felt difficult, as if the air had suddenly become thinner. Beside her, Daniel squeezed her hand with nearly desperate force, trying to convey calm, but unable to find the right words. In the days following the diagnosis, Clara withdrew into her thoughts, recalling childhood scenes with her mother, who had died prematurely from an incurable disease. That once distant memory now loomed like a shadow over her future. Memories of her father, who had raised her alone after her mother's passing, surfaced even more intensely. The life lessons, the wise advice, the unwavering affection. She wondered how she could face another devastating loss when she already bore the mark of past grief. Daniel, for his part, tried to resume household routines so Clara wouldn't be left alone. He prepared breakfast, scheduled medical appointments, and strove to maintain normality in daily tasks. Yet, in every glance he shared with Clara, he saw the fear of someone who felt the ground could vanish at any moment. During work breaks, he spoke at length with his father-in-law, seeking words of support and strategies to care for Clara. Even so, he felt powerless in the face of the diagnosis, like a boat adrift on a stormy sea. Amidst continuous streams of hugs and messages of support, Clara realized that comforting words sounded hollow compared to what she felt. Friends and relatives alternated between practical advice and promises of prayer, but nothing filled the emptiness growing in her chest. At each family gathering, she forced a smile to show strength, but inside she battled rising anguish. Conversations that once revolved around travel and projects became distant recollections, like scenes from a film that was no longer hers. Despite everything, a flicker of hope stirred something within her, a diffuse sense that something extraordinary awaited her. It was as if, behind that gray cloud, there existed a sliver of light not yet revealed. Clara tried to make sense of this unprecedented feeling, but couldn't translate it into words. At night, before sleeping, she looked at the ceiling and felt a gentle, almost imperceptible pulse, like a reminder that life still persisted, insistent. One autumn morning, looking out the window, Clara glimpsed the silhouette of a bird in flight, and for a moment she felt that vision symbolized her own resilience. The distant melody of the metro blended with the rhythmic sound of her racing heart, bringing forth the urgency to savor every moment. The house that had witnessed her everyday achievements now seemed too small before the challenge she faced. Even so, she maintained the posture of someone who acknowledged that the end might be near, but refused to give up without a fight. Clara's father had become her greatest emotional pillar since childhood, and now he was the shoulder she leaned on to break the isolation of her somber thoughts. During phone calls, he recounted stories of triumph and encouraged his daughter to find strength where she least expected it. That comfort made Clara wander through the rooms of the house as if in slow motion, noticing every detail. the soft rug in the living room, the sound of Daniel's footsteps descending the stairs, the aroma of the coffee he brewed each morning. Even amid fear, her father's presence offered a solace that kept darkness from becoming final. And then, on a rainy afternoon, Clara received news that made her mind whirl with both hope and dread. A test revealed that her body showed signs of pregnancy. For a moment, the world stopped once more, though this time the surprise brought with it a spark of uneasy curiosity. Thinking of the baby growing inside her, she still did not know that this tiny being would change everything in an unimaginable way. Clara felt the weight of her diagnosis intensify when she decided to postpone chemotherapy to protect the pregnancy she hadn't yet officially embraced. The first days were marked by severe nausea, dizziness, and profound fatigue. But for her, the idea of nurturing a new life was worth every sacrifice. Daniel began to tend to every detail, bringing breakfast in bed, going to the market to restock supplies, while scheduling weekly medical appointments. That exhausting routine transformed the once tranquil apartment into a scene of silent urgencies, where each gesture of affection was shadowed by the anxiety of not knowing if the tumor would progress. Clara barely managed to process her mood swings. One moment she saw hope, the next she let fear overwhelm her at the thought of disappointing her family. When the pregnancy test confirmed what that slight menstrual delay had suggested, the news exploded in Clara's chest with a mixture of euphoria and terror. She could hardly believe that, despite feeling the devastating effects of cancer, another life was blossoming in her uterus. The medical team, in solemn tones, warned about the risks of the choice she had made, emphasizing that the tumor could grow rapidly without treatment. Still, Clara felt something shift within her. Every heartbeat of the baby, captured on ultrasound, sounded like a promise of the future, even if uncertain. Daniel remained silent for long seconds before embracing her, his hope intermingled with the fear of losing both his wife and the unborn child. The gravity of that moment echoed in the following days. Clara battled morning sickness, food sensitivity, and exhaustion that prevented her from standing for long. Her body sometimes rejected nourishment, but she forced herself to swallow small portions for fear of weakening too much. Daniel spent hours researching light, nutritious recipes, adjusting spices and textures to please Clara's sensitive palate. The apartment, once brightened by flower arrangements that Daniel brought to cheer the ambiance, now seemed to pulse with the uncertainty of each exam. Yet all signs of strength seemed to emanate from a thread of faith that Clara stubbornly kept alive. At each bi-weekly ultrasound, doctors exchanged surprised glances when they noticed the tumor had not grown significantly. They murmured among themselves about rare cases of spontaneous regression, but avoided raising false hopes. For Clara, however, every minimal reduction in the nodule size felt like a victory against fate. She remembered stories her father told. Her grandmother, who had survived serious complications during World War II, clutching her newborn sister's hand until she found the strength to survive. Now, Clara saw herself as the heir to that ancestral strength, believing that the baby in her womb carried something beyond mere existence. Daniel recorded every detail in a notebook, wanting to document each centimeter of progress as proof that miracles do happen. Monthly checkups gradually revealed that the tumor was, in fact, shrinking, albeit slowly. For Clara, that slight movement of hope provoked a surge of gratitude so intense that she lacked words. Walking down the hospital corridor, she fixed her gaze on the monitors displaying ultrasound images, imagining the baby growing alongside the healing of her body. Back in the car, Daniel watched her in silence, measuring the sparkle in her eyes as confirmation that maybe that sacrifice was worth it. Even as fatigue advanced, Clara found strength to prepare light meals, arrange the baby's room, and sometimes simply lie on the living room rug, breathing deeply and feeling life pulse through every inch of her body. Meanwhile, the couple's finances began to strain under mounting medical bills. Costs for imaging tests, monthly ultrasounds, and specialist consultations drained the budget that had once been balanced. Daniel renegotiated deaths, cut expenses, and even sold some family heirlooms to cover hospital bills. The comfortable lifestyle they once had gave way to silent austerity, where every expense was calibrated for patient and professional needs. Clara perceived his effort each time. Instead of bringing flowers to brighten the atmosphere, he arrived with a fresh piece of fruit, hope intact in his eyes. Every economy bore the weight of the life in formation. Clara's father started visiting more frequently, bringing childhood memories and sharing stories of resilience she had never forgotten. He spoke of her grandmother, who walked miles to obtain medicine, of her uncle, a battle survivor, and of her great-grandfather, who endured floods. Each narrative reinforced the belief that the human body can endure adversities that seem unbearable. Clara absorbed those stories like a balm, repeating comforting phrases in her mind. Her father's visits softened the heavy silence of the apartment, filling it with voices that reminded her she was not alone. At 30 weeks of gestation, minor complications arose, episodes of shortness of breath and slight swelling in her legs. The risk of preterm labor loomed, keeping the couple on constant alert. Daniel set up an improvised home heart monitor, tracking the baby's heartbeat and comparing it to medical records. Clara felt sharp pains in her abdomen, but when she placed her hand on her belly and felt the baby move, she remembered that this life carried a greater purpose. Her determination to keep the miracle alive renewed with every gentle kick she felt. One silent midnight, Clara awoke to intense pain, as if her body resisted its own will to go on. Daniel, on high alert, called the medical hotline, which directed them to the hospital immediately. On the way, between speed bumps and traffic lights, Clara sensed Daniel's human warmth as he held her hand, conveying strength even without knowing the right words. In the emergency room, the monitor detected light contractions, signaling the baby might arrive earlier than expected. Clara's heart raced, blending joy and terror indistinctly. When doctors informed them that labor would begin within a few hours, the waiting room filled with restrained tension. Daniel leaned into Clara, whispering that he believed in a greater miracle than any prognosis. Clara blinked to hold back tears. After all, the baby had not yet been born. But at that moment, she understood that emotional whirlwind represented the final barrier before the climax of her story. Each contraction brought her closer to the greatest revelation of her life, the complete remission of her cancer. Clara felt the first contractions in the silent early morning, as if her body knew the most decisive moment had arrived. The hospital became a whirlwind of hushed voices, white coats, and the clink of monitors marking each heartbeat of the baby and each breath she took. Daniel, pale but attentive, held her arm while doctors hurried to prepare the delivery room. Amid fear, Clara thought of all the days she had faced without chemotherapy, trusting that this pregnancy had a higher purpose. When the baby arrived, fragile and premature, the cry that echoed in the room sounded like a whisper of victory. Here was the life that had come to restore hope. Nurses wrapped the newborn in soft blankets, and Clara, exhausted, heard his first faint breath. That was when doctors pointed out the imaging results. The mass that once occupied part of her lung had vanished completely. The contrast between the baby's fragility and her own healed body created a reverent silence in the room. Daniel felt tears well up at the sight of the son who had been born to fulfill an unexpected mission, and he couldn't contain the emotional smile as he held the baby's tiny hand. Clara, though exhausted, gave a gentle smile, understanding that the miracle had occurred. The baby had been born to save her, even though she had been unaware of that role. In the neonatal ICU, the baby's small body lay supported by tubes and monitors that regulated his breathing. Each electronic beep announced both hope and fear, the fragile balance between life and death. The following hours passed in a state of constant vigilance. Doctors monitored the baby's progress while performing tests to confirm Clara's complete remission. When she learned she was cancer-free, emotions swirled within her in a tempest, but there was no time to celebrate fully. Instead, Clara had to summon strength to visit her son in the ICU, fearing she might lose him before even truly meeting him. Even cured, she carried the weight of her maternal condition and the fragility of the being who had saved her. Around the third day, a sudden change in the baby's clinical state stunned everyone. Respiratory complications and hospital-acquired infections turned his condition critical within hours. Doctors and nurses moved urgently, adjusting ventilators and administering medications, while Clara, beside Daniel, silently pleaded for the little warrior to hold on a little longer. Every time a nurse's gaze shifted away from the baby, she felt her chest tighten with uncertainty. Clara's father waited at the door, hands trembling, ready to offer the support his daughter needed. On the night they learned the baby could not sustain life, silence enveloped the hospital room like a heavy shroud. Daniel gripped Clara's hand tightly, sharing the agony overflowing in their hearts. She then recalled her father's stories of sacrifice and purpose. The baby had been born to heal his mother, and once that mission was fulfilled, his time in the world would be brief. Her father's words echoed in her mind like a dim light, revealing the meaning of that moment of impending sorrow. When the doctor entered, head bowed, to deliver the news that the baby had died, Clara felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet for a second time in her life. Daniel's stifled sob reverberated in the room, blending with the profound silence that followed. The medical team left the couple alone, respecting the farewell moment that would never be forgotten. Clara then stroked her son's face one last time, feeling the softness of his newborn skin as tears silently streamed down. Clara's father entered the NICU to embrace them both, forming a circle of profound grief yet silent gratitude. The baby had fulfilled his purpose by curing his mother, even if only for 3 days. Through tears, Clara thanked God for her cancer's remission, but mourned the painful price paid to save her life. Daniel held her firmly, feeling the weight of shared sorrow and the strength born from their family's bond. The empty room left after they took the baby away brought a hollowness that felt impossible to fill. In the hours that followed, Clara wandered the hospital corridors, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions that consumed her. Each step echoed her inner struggle between gratitude and deep sadness. The memory of her baby's smile at birth mended her heart in fragments, while the room's silence reminded her that he had left too soon. Daniel helped her sit in a chair, holding her steady so she wouldn't collapse. When they left the hospital, Clara received a silent hug from her father that spoke volumes. She understood that her first child's mission had ended there, to save his mother's life so she could live fully to see a new dawn. The corridor's cold air mingled with Clara's tears, reminding her of the fragility and strength intertwined in every heartbeat. Even on the brink of grief, Clara kept the flame of hope kindled. She had carried a life that had healed her completely, and she believed that despite the pain, a new beginning awaited. Looking up at the gray sky outside the hospital, she felt that farewell was only the prelude to a new story soon to unfold. Clara was engulfed in deep mourning, reliving every intense moment of the premature birth and the short life of her first child. In the days that followed, she clung to her father, sharing memories and feeling her baby's absence in every corner of the house. The room that once held hope now throbbed with longing, and the nights were marked by painful recollections of the small face that had saved her. Daniel remained by Clara's side, offering silent support and allowing them both to grieve without rush. Amid tears, he reminded her of her father's words. "Your son brought more than healing to your body. He brought life to our hearts." Those memories helped Clara accept that her baby's mission was fulfilled, to allow her to live fully to see a new dawn. Over time, Clara felt a new spark of hope when a routine exam revealed a second pregnancy. Fear still hovered in her chest, but now it was accompanied by renewed gratitude and faith. Each gentle movement in her belly rekindled her belief that this baby would not only fill the void left by his brother, but also celebrate his mother's life. When that second child was finally born, strong and healthy, Clara heard his cry as a hymn of redemption. Holding him in her arms, she felt her heart overflow with gratitude. While the first son had only the mission to bring healing, this new baby would build a story of happiness and hope alongside the family. Daniel and Clara's father watched, moved as they embraced, a victory of hope intertwined with sorrow. In those first days, Clara reflected on the greater purpose of everything she had lived, learning that love can transcend sorrow and transform even grief into the strength to begin anew. She realized that although life may demand unimaginable sacrifices, each day alongside her second child would be a tribute to the legacy left by the baby who departed too soon. If this story touched your heart, click like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next emotional narrative. Every story here is crafted to surprise and move you, and your subscription helps us create even more content that makes a difference. Now, be sure to watch the next video and follow another story that will surely move you even more.